Good morning. My name is Robin Parker, and I'm the General Counsel at Miami University. I'm here to speak to you this morning about freedom of expression under the First Amendment at Miami University. Miami is a public university, and we are established by statute in the state of Ohio. As you might guess, the Constitution only applies to public entities. It does not apply to private bodies. So, for example, your grocer doesn't care about your First Amendment rights and doesn't have to give you First Amendment rights. But the university, as a public university, must protect the First Amendment rights of all of its faculty, staff, and students, and visitors. Many private universities guarantee freedom of expression by contract, but it's not constitutional. And so Miami must comply with the Constitution. So what's the basic principle of freedom of expression? It's that the freedoms guaranteed by the First Amendment must be accorded to the ideas we hate, or sooner or later they will be denied to the ideas we cherish. The First Amendment is grounded in the educational mission of the institution. We are an institution built on inquiry and the freedom to learn and to understand all points of view and to discover the truth and knowledge by exploring all viewpoints. Okay, so what does the First Amendment actually protect? It protects written and spoken words. It includes art, music, dance, clothing, so you can wear a flag on your jacket, social media posts, protests, demonstrations, and even money when it's used to fund political speech. There are some categories of speech that the Constitution does not protect. What are those unprotected classes? Well, obscenity. We all know that you have to meet the legal test for obscenity. True threats, I'm going to kill you, when spoken to you, is a true threat. If I incite to riot or lawless action, that's not going to be protected. If I defame you, if I say something false about you, and it ruins your reputation. Harassment, and we'll get into that a little bit more in another slide. And fighting words. What are fighting words? Fighting words are those insults that are hurled at someone in a face-to-face setting that would incite a normal, ordinary person to violence. So calling you a name or a slur to your face is likely to be unprotected speech, but you might be able to say it in other contexts that aren't face-to-face. Harassment is not protected speech, but it has to be unwelcome, directed at an individual. You can't be just saying things about an entire group of people. It has to be directed to a particular person. It has to be discriminatory on the basis of a protected class. Your age, your race, your disability, your gender, or your age. It has to be so severe and pervasive and objectively offensive, not just offensive to you, but objectively offensive, that it effectively denies you equal access to the university's programs or activities. The harassment policy at the university is enforced by the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity, and persons who believe they've been harassed should report it to that office. Hate speech. We hear a lot of talk about hate speech these days. And while there's no clear definition of hate speech, the Supreme Court recently, in a case, said the following: speech that demeans on the basis of race, ethnicity, gender, religion, age, disability, or any other similar ground is hateful. But the proudest boast of our free speech jurisprudence is that we protect the freedom to express the thought we hate. So the basic concept under the Constitution is you cannot regulate speech based on its content. You can punish unprotected speech, but speech that is protected by the Constitution, even if you dislike it or it is hateful, you can't regulate it based on its content. So you can't say speakers that are going to say hateful things have to go over to this place to talk, and people with ideas we like can go over here to talk. You must do it in a way that is called viewpoint neutral. That is not based on the content, but based on other factors. So what are those other factors? They're called time, place, and manner rules. And they do exactly what you think. They regulate the time you can talk, the place you can talk, and the manner, and whether you can use a microphone, whether you can use a bullhorn, and other issues like that. So we have lots of time, place, and manner rules at the university. They are available on the policy library, mostly under the administrative section with use of university property, but they regulate things like campus events, law and order, the use of property, where can you go to do certain things. For example, student organizations have access to lots of places to speak and to host events that visitors don't. So visitors who want to come and speak at the university have to either be sponsored by the university or a student organization that is invited to campus to speak, or they are regulated to what we call the perimeter sidewalks, which means they have to conduct their speech or their leafleting or their protesting on our perimeter sidewalks like High Street and Spring Street. Obviously, I've already talked to you about our policy prohibiting harassment and discrimination. We have rules that regulate signs, posters, and banners. So, for example, you cannot hang signs out of your dorm room windows or in your office window facing outside. We regulate solicitation, political canvassing, sales projects, and raffles, so commercial speech. Not all speech is equally protected under the First Amendment. Some speech, like political speech, enjoys far more protections under the First Amendment than does commercial speech. So let's talk about individual on-campus free speech rights. Your free speech rights depend on who you are and where you are. And by who you are I mean, are you a student, are you a staff member, or are you a faculty member, and where are you speaking? That's called a forum in the legal parlance, but classrooms, your rights inside the classroom may be different than your rights outside the classroom. Your rights off campus may be different than your rights on campus. So faculty enjoy academic freedom. That is something that is constitutionally protected as free speech, and that is faculty have the right to teach what they are assigned to teach in the manner that they deem appropriate and how they deem it appropriate. That's not to say that all classroom speech is protected, particularly if it's unrelated to the topic of the class. So there have been cases where tenured members of the faculty have been terminated at other institutions because they spent the class cussing, talking about their sex life, and talking about things that are unrelated to the subject they were assigned to teach. Staff free speech rights are more circumscribed than faculty because we don't have academic freedom. And what the First Amendment asks you to do is balance the rights of a public employee, because you don't give up your constitutional rights just because you're a public employee, but to balance your right to speak as a citizen against the interests of the university as a public employer. So what that means is if you're speaking in your role as a university employee, as a public employee, the university has the right to dictate what you can and cannot say in your role as a public employee. So you can be told to undertake a particular activity or speech. On the other hand, you still have the right to criticize as a citizen matters of public, what are called matters of public concern. Matters of public concern are things like the budget of the university, the fiscal responsibility of the university, the mission of the university, things that are of particular public interest, political matters. This chart tries to show how this is balanced and regulated. So if you're speaking as a private citizen off campus, in most circumstances, the university cannot regulate what you say. If you're speaking on campus as an employee, the university has some rights to regulate it. If you're a confidential, what's called a confidential and policy making employee, and that's kind of the senior leadership of the institution, the university has more rights to regulate what you say. And of course, faculty enjoy far more freedom in academic freedom. Students, on the other hand, students enjoy probably the most freedom of expression rights. This is their home. This is where they've been brought to learn. And so there is an entire line of case law that says students don't shed their constitutional rights at the classroom door, that they have the right to engage in free speech, even if we find that speech offensive. That doesn't mean that you can stand up in the middle of a classroom and start talking about baseball when you're in your physics class, but it does mean you have the right to hold and express your opinions. If you'd like more information about freedom of expression, there's a website on the General Counsel's website, and there's the URL for the website, and please go and read the FAQs. Thank you.